Welcome to the People Strategy Forum. We will be diving into the important topic today of managing the agile workforce. And today we're thrilled to have Gerri Knilans join us. She is the driving force behind Trade Press Services. With over 4 decades in experience in sales, marketing, and strategic communication, Gerri has harnessed her extensive knowledge to foster growth and innovation across numerous industries. So we're very fortunate to have her here today. She is the president of Trade Press Services, and Gerri has transformed the way that companies engage with their audience in crafting those tailored marketing solutions that speak directly to the needs of today's fast-moving markets and overall in industries across the world. So her leadership has earned recognition from major networks like ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, showcasing her as a top professional in her field. So today, Gerri brings her expertise in our discussion on agile workforce management. Gerri has worked with professionals across the globe, and she's going to offer insights on how dynamic communication strategies can significantly enhance employee engagement and their organizational agility. So join us as we explore the strategies that empower companies to thrive in an ever-evolving business landscape. So welcome, Gerri, and welcome to the People Strategy Forum.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And so, Gerri, as we enter into the conversation here, it's great to be able to share with our audience a little bit about how you started into this field. So, could you kind of reach back in your memory and kind of start with what drove you to help the people that you help today? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I learned at a very young age that I was not cut out to be in corporate America. It just wasn't going to work for me. Standard operating procedures, rules and regulations, punching a clock, those things didn't appeal to me, and I knew that I had more to offer the world. So at a very young age, 23, I started my first entrepreneurial venture. I bought preschool and kindergarten, and I owned and operated that for several years, and that's where I got some business experience. Um, After several years of tonsillitis and changing diapers, I decided that wasn't for me, and I wanted to go more into B2B marketing. And fortunately, I had a contact who had a marketing consulting practice. He needed to expand. He brought me into it, and I learned a lot about business, about marketing, about what works, what doesn't work. And we worked together for many years, and he had the idea for Trade Press Services, my current business. He was a visionary guy, but he wasn't an operational person. So he gave me the idea and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I think it's doable." And within 3 weeks, I had the company up and running, and I never looked back. That was 29 years ago. I feel so fortunate to have worked with so many bright and smart and intelligent people who are committed to the same vision that I have of helping companies um, increase their visibility, credibility, and name recognition in their marketplaces.
Hmm. So, so you were quite a visionary, and when it comes to looking at talent that is outside of your location. So what was the driving force behind hiring your first remote employee? What was that like?
Well, this was back in the 1990s, and the company was small, and so I needed to work with somebody to help me grow the business. Excuse me. And so I found that there was a tremendous market for people who were well educated, who maybe were stay at home moms and they wanted to do something beyond raising their children. So there was a marketplace for that talent. So we just started working together and expanding, tapping into that marketplace of women and a few men who wanted to do something more, wanted to contribute, wanted to pursue some intellectual pursuits to be more satisfied and feel like they were you know contributing to society and activating their brain. And that's how it first started. And we decided we didn't want to be in the HR business. So we always worked with independent contractors. And so, in order to fulfill the services that our clients wanted, which was basically writing and publishing articles and white papers and case studies and even books, we needed to find talented freelancers who could take on projects for us. And they might take on projects for other companies too, other agencies, and that was fine with us. So we started working with a few writers, and we figured out what worked and what didn't work and how to manage them and what kind of support they needed and how to communicate with them. And it was a learning curve. And we started out with 3 writers, and we now have 25, and
Mm.
they're all across the globe. We have one of our writers in the Philippines and one of our writers in England, one in Taiwan, and the rest are stateside.
So in the 1990s, I mean, a lot of this was done, over the phone. Is that right? So there's,
Over
the
the phone initially, but that's when email first came into being for corporations, and so we could communicate not only by phone but by email. And it was only later that we started with Zoom calls and other platforms. But we found for at least 20 years that email and phone calls worked.
yeah. And what were some of the challenges that you find when you first started working with contractors remotely?
Well, there are two kinds of contractors that we work with. So let's take the writers first, because that is
Mhm.
a separate category. And we found that writers are very creative, but we had to provide them with a structure, and we really had to identify clear expectations, and we had to give them guidelines in terms of what clients needed and what editors needed, because we were really a matchmaker between clients' area of expertise and providing good quality content to publications. And the writer was the conduit. So we needed to find out how many hours a writer had available for a specific project. What other activities were they doing? What were their family needs? What were their communication styles? What motivated them? How best to work with them in terms of schedules and deliverables. So those were some of the challenges. Clearly, they are independent contractors, and we value their talent and expertise. Through the years, as AI became popular, we had to really focus in on making sure that writers and clients did not plagiarize or use AI solely for their content. So that added another element of supervision for us, and explaining the reasons why that was unacceptable
Right.
could be challenging to, for clients, because English might have been their second language, or they wanted to look good and they thought it was just easier to lift content than to express their own thought leadership. And so we had to explain to them why that wasn't going to work. And for writers, we said it's okay to use AI for research, but you have to be able to verify it. and use a second source, and you can't just lift content. So that was another one of the challenges that has come up recently, and we've incorporated those kinds of checks and balances into our system.
Yeah.
The other type of contractors that we're working with are individuals who perform what some people might call staff positions. And we're currently rethinking that and will probably evolve into a more employee based business model. But right now, they're part timers. Just like I said in the beginning, these are individuals who may be stay at home moms or people who have retired from their profession and they want something else to do to stay engaged, to stay relevant, to challenge their brain. So we work with them and we give them a job description, but they can perform the job according to their own time schedule. They work remotely. We don't supervise them. We just ask for deliverables.
Mm.
So those types of roles could include client servicing, marketing. It could be editorial outreach. It could be researchers and a variety of other functions. Project management certainly is one of them, where we have somebody coordinating, being the intermediary between the time we get a project in and until completion. So following that up all the way through until we deliver the end project. So we have that group, and there are about 11 of them right now, and we're looking to expand because we're bursting at the seams.
Well, definitely, it's good to be busy, but I do want to uh, go back to one thing that you mentioned earlier. You said one of the initial challenges was really understanding the remote workforce,
Mhm.
understanding what was driving their performance, how to keep them engaged, and it seems like that's really knowing your people at a personal level. And so, Gerri, how did you accomplish that connection with your people and over to get to know them over the phone?
Uh, okay, I'm going to give you my mantra, the three G's: giving, gratitude, and guts. So my mindset is one of giving. I want to give to others. I want to make sure that the people I work with are happy and engaged and fulfilled. Gratitude because I believe in giving thanks and recognizing people for their efforts and their contributions. Uh, Sometimes I think that's more important than compensation.
Yes, I
And
agree.
guts really has to do with grit and perseverance and working through challenges and opportunities and making it happen. So those are my three G's: giving, gratitude, and guts. But you're right. When you said know your people, it means understanding what motivates them. Not everybody has the same motivating factors. Some people are motivated by money, some are motivated by security, some are motivated by recognition. Uh, you have to figure out who you're working with. What's their personal situation? Um, how do they like to be managed? How do they like to be communicated with? What's their style? What kind of frequency of communication? What kind of accountability? Transparency in communication, knowing how their work fits into the team. So we have bi-monthly team meetings that include all of our staff type people, and we have quarterly meetings for our writings so that everybody is kept up to date. And we start the meeting out by a short catch up. What's new in your world? What's happened since the last time we talked? How are you doing? And we usually show a video or we have a quote of the month and let people respond to it so that we begin to learn about each other's personalities and styles. So those are some of the ways that we get to know our people.
That's some great pointers, and some that I should definitely use on my with my workforce. I mean, we all work together globally, and so it's some of these are really great pointers. So thank you so much, Gerri.
You're welcome.
Now, Sumit, I'd like to tap into your thoughts here. I mean, because I know that you work with numerous organizations across the globe. So when it comes to really understanding style of communication and so forth, I mean, how do you set norms with those that you work with?
I think a lot of it aligns with what Gerri was saying, Sam. People feel making that we're valuing their time. So it's very easy to, when you've got a globally distributed workforce, it's very easy to follow it at corporate headquarters and say that this is how things happen here, this is how they will continue.
And then I think that brings up another good thing as Sumit just exited the call. And so sometimes when we're working with the remote workforce, we might have certain technical issues. And so, in Gerri, how have you addressed some of these technical challenges, that may occur in business?
We haven't had too many technical challenges, but it is an awareness of time zones.
Mhm.
And, um, for me, it's easy because I'm available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I don't expect other people to have that. So when we work with clients who are located outside the regular US time zones, we make sure that we understand those. We communicate through WhatsApp, through Zoom, and it's it's just a matter of making the adjustments. And when we put clients and writers together, we try and take into consideration where a writer is, what time zone, to make sure that's not going to be a barrier to communications with the client.
Yes, and I know that especially when time zones, you're talking about, you have some contractors in the Philippines. I mean, that which can be a very challenging time zone. I know that, but there's some advantages to that. So I guess could we back up and talk about your first hire overseas? Why did you choose to hire a contractor that's outside the United States?
It was due to a referral. And I was going to mention this that, how do you grow a company? And when you need to add more team members, what's the best way to do it? And I've always believed it's through referrals and introductions. And fortunately, we have a wide network of people that we've worked with through the years. And one of the things that I've always said to people is, however long we work together and it works for both of us, that's great. And when you want to do something else that doesn't include us, I understand, and I'll even help you accomplish what you want to accomplish, even if it doesn't include working with trade press services. And because of that mindset, I've kept in touch with people who I worked with 15, 20 years ago. And this particular case where we hired somebody who's working in the Philippines and in China, both of them came from referrals.
Hmm. That's great. And then I think when some of the advantages of having some people that are in those locations, I mean, does it help you be more agile with the work that you do, and perhaps delivering things and overnight if possible in some situations?
Well, I think we're a 24-hour, 7-day a week society,
Hmm.
and we can work as quickly and be as agile and flexible as clients are. But, clients have families too, and they have work responsibilities, and they're managing and they're juggling it. And so, even though they might want to finish something sooner rather than later, stuff happens. and it gets in the way of completing a project as quickly as they would like. And we understand that, and we are constantly working to help clients navigate time constraints and understand the process for developing good quality content and making sure that they're happy with the end product.
Hmm. Shar, oh, I'm sorry, Shar, were you going to say something there? Or did I cut you off?
No, I haven't talked yet.
Oh, so I'd love to bring you into the discussion here, Shar, about because I know that you have worked in many businesses, many of those we were just talking about your serial entrepreneurship and nature, just like Gerri, you've created a lot of businesses, and you've also worked with people remotely, and so what are the challenges that you've experienced in remote work?
Well, first of all, I'll speak to that, but I just want to say, Gerri, I just want to give you a compliment for really, I sense that you're really about diversity and inclusion. I think that's so fantastic with different cultures, different perspectives, including different age demographics. And I have to say, I thank you for that, because opportunity is lifelong. So I appreciate that. Also, as also an entrepreneur and a business owner, I was working from Mexico and managing my near 30 employees at the time for my company. And it was very, very important, as you mentioned, to build those relationships and that communication and touch point, because there's also a sense from my employees, my managers, my directors. Well, Char's out of the country. She's in Mexico. She's not here. She does not understand. So I was very sensitive to that. So I had to hardwire those one-on-ones and make them very meaningful. So what I really focused on was, this is an old-fashioned comment, which you all know about, is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Because as we know, and particularly right now, but this was several years ago, but obviously people are struggling with their day-to-day and supporting their families and their health and many, many factors, which I don't need to go into. But oftentimes, so one, the absence of their manager or supervisor, and then two, struggling with the day-to-day in a sense that I can't really talk about those things because I don't want to look weak. I don't want to look unproductive, particularly as you talk about content writing, because that is extremely challenging without using AI sometimes to be creative and come up with good content. So I think that's really vital. So do you provide, Gerri, some kind of, I talk about just regular one-on-ones, that's just a tactical activity, but do you provide guidance to managers, leaders, and even your clients? How do they make those meaningful conversations remotely? So that people feel really cared about and really have that relationship? Is there tips that you do to help leaders do that?
Yes, and we really strive to make clients and other stakeholders feel welcome, feel cared about, and feel supported. There are many moving parts to our process, and sometimes clients get confused. And even though they hear the words and they see the written words, it's not always enough. And because they're interacting with multiple people in our organization, there's always a chance for miscommunication. And so we really strive to follow up our phone conversations with written communications and let people know that if they have any questions or concerns, that we're available to talk with them at any point in time. And when they want to go outside the box or they want something that we don't usually provide, we bend over backwards to say yes. And even if we can't do it personally, we will find somebody who can help them. And I think that that's part of making them feel supported and cared about. And after we finish a project with clients, we always follow up with a monthly status report so that they can see the activity that we performed on their behalf and know where their project stands. And when we're finished with the assignments that they've asked us to perform on their behalf, we let them know that we've completed that. And if there's anything else we can do to be of support to them as they go on their personal or professional career journey, we're here to be of service.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Because I know my colleagues have a lot to ask too. I just want to mention that having hired my own social media person, it's a challenge because I've worked in HR for decades, and having the degrees and the expertise and the real life experience, when you hire somebody to really write that content, there's oftentimes a bit of a mismatch because particularly in HR, it's very regulatory, blah, 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 lots of laws. And you can't just jump into political dialogues or opinions. And I'll just use a quick example. Someone I hired had really gotten into the Me Too movement, which I totally understand where that's coming from. But in HR, we need to really be cautious how we're writing about that particular topic.
Mhm.
And, that's something that's hard for somebody that doesn't have the background or the education or the experience to really understand. You can't talk about that stuff always. You know what I mean? So in your agile workforce, how do you really align your customer needs? Because not everybody's an expert in everything. So how do you deal with that, Gerri?
I think that's a good question. And part of it comes from our ability to identify good, sound questions that are relevant to the topic or the client's area of expertise. In our business, it's more about not providing self-serving, self-promotional content that just is breastfeeding. So our project manager develops a list of interview questions for every project, and they're designed to get at every angle of the topic we can think about. And the writer who interviews the client then puts together an outline. And when we see the outline, if there are any red flags, we can address them at that time.
So one of the things that I'm hearing is that it's crucial to ensure that we talked about setting expectations first, and then it's also understanding the guardrails for each one of your clients, and to ensure that those are met. But another thing that you mentioned, Gerri, is that you were talking about the importance of just understanding the ways that people communicate differently. And so you were talking about not just verbal communication, but also documenting in a written form so that people can read that if they miss the communication and so forth. I think that's important. And then, but have you found that your employees that are remote, they may have a variety of different communication styles, and finding the right one that works is important?
Well, because people are independent contracts, we can't dictate, but we do provide guidelines. And personally, I find a combination of approaches, whether it's a phone call followed by an email, followed by a Zoom call, and combinations thereof are the most effective ways. I don't think you can rely on one communication style in this day and age.
Now, is there risk of overdoing it? Because I did have one client that had they were communicating on so many different channels. I mean, they had a variety of like they had Slack, and then they had the internal website, and then they had emails that were going out, and sometimes they were struggling with keeping the message straight on the different platforms.
Well, that gets into a whole nother discussion about a marketing plan,
Yeah.
and whether it's for a company that is interested in increasing their visibility, credibility, and name recognition in their marketplaces, what are the strategies and the tactics and the budget and the channels of communication and the messaging? And that gets into a whole nother avenue. But when we're working with individuals who are seeking immigration visas, which is the bulk of our business today, they don't have marketing plans, and they're not on a variety of social media platforms, because their sole purpose is to write and have published scholarly content. Scholarly content is defined as providing high value information to professionals.
So I think that there is a, when you're talking about these high performing scholarly individuals, and then one of the big things is from an agile and remote perspective, you come to rely on certain individuals with certain backgrounds and so forth. At times they may be working on other projects that can prohibit them from working on yours, and so maybe that delays the product for a while. I mean, is that ever an issue with that in your organization?
Of course, we get the whip out daily.
That's great.
Just kidding. But we have a production schedule that's monitored. It's called Asana. You may be familiar with it. And so we monitor the status of every project on a daily basis. And writers are responsible for completing certain tasks by certain days. Clients are responsible for reviewing and providing input to their project by specific days. And then as the coordinating agencies, we're responsible for assimilating that information and putting it back to both clients and writers on certain days. And so we strive to never miss a deadline. If we see that a client's struggling, they don't get back to us, we will ask an editor for an extension if we can. And we've had a couple of times, not too many fortunately, where a client will go silent and simply not respond.
Yes.
Very frustrating to the writer, very frustrating to the client services team, very frustrating to the project managers who are trying to do a good job and deliver quality work on time. But in the end, if somebody is non-responsive, you just have to cut your losses and say, I'm sorry that we're not able to help you, accomplish your goals without your participation. It's only happened a few times. And when I look at the number of projects we've done, we've written more than 2,500 articles that have appeared in over 900 publications.
Wow.
And hundreds of white papers and case studies, and we've written 6 books. And so we've done a lot of work. So in the scheme of things, we're working with over 1,000 clients. If we've had 2 or 3 clients who have not been happy or who have not completed, the work they've done with us, I feel very fortunate that it's that low.
Well, one thing I think that's, it's important. I mean, sometimes you can only do so much with your clients or your workforce. I mean, to ensure that there's that good communication. But I want to back up on one concept that many business owners out there are struggling with, and in which in your environment, this may be easier because it's easy to really look at output versus just seeing a person work. And a lot of managers nowadays, they're used to seeing a person come into the office and typing away in the computer, and they're seeing that physical confirmation of work. And many managers have a problem with remote work because they don't get that visual confirmation. And so in your particular situation, I mean, of course, you get this, you're complete ROI focused. I mean, they are, you're using Asana and that project management system to see the results of of what they're doing, and that's coming back to you real time. But have you ever experienced any kind of problems there where you are lacking that confirmation, or you're not really sure if a person is working when they're remote?
It's an interesting question. I don't want to be in the business of tracking hours.
Yeah.
And if it takes somebody an hour to do a task and I'm paying them X dollars per hour, and it takes somebody else 5 hours to do the same task, and I'm still paying them that same amount, it's really about helping people to be successful. I don't really like the idea of tracking hours. I believe in the trust system. I'm paying you to do a job, and this is what we expect. And is it hard to measure? Sometimes, yes, but um, that's the way we do business.
Yeah.
Because we want to work with professionals who have integrity and who share our values and our vision and want to do a good job. And that certainly brings up, two interesting aspects of managing a remote or agile workforce, and that's, the culture that you create and also change management. So what happens when someone leaves? How do you address that? What happens when you want to change reporting responsibilities, or what happens when you want to redistribute work in some ways? And how do you communicate that need and why you're doing it and the benefit it's going to bring to the people who are involved? So it's not easy, and sometimes there are complex issues to address.
Yes, and just managing the workforce overall, and that change management. I mean, have you found that there's differences and what are the unique differences that you found with remote employees versus those that are in person?
I don't think it's a matter of remote employees or in person, because frankly, it's been many years since I've had any in-person people. Even though I have an office that's set up for 5 people, I'm the only one who works here. Everybody else is remote. So, and there used to be a time when I could see people on their computers working, but I don't do that anymore. So
Yeah.
it's really, I think if you haven't heard from somebody, in a specific time period, you might want to call and say, "Hey, how's it going? What's going on?"
Yes.
You do the check-ins. But as long as somebody's delivering the work and the quality and the accuracy that you need, then things are good.
Right.
We do acknowledge all of our associates in terms of birthdays and anniversaries and vacation plans, and what their lives look like, raising children and getting ready for marriages and births and all these kinds of things. So in addition to our work relationships, we really try and show an interest in them personally.
Well, it's certainly an interesting discussion, Gerri. I mean, so I guess when we're thinking about what do we want our listeners to walk away from, and what do we want them to take away from this conversation that today? What are the key things that you want our leaders that are listening in to understand?
Well, I think it's communication, communication, communication. So understanding that when you're working with an agile workforce, you have to be more diligent about communications, find out what their styles are, how frequently, what they need, what they expect, and how they like to be managed or worked with. You know, what can you do as a leader to help them be as successful as they can be and accomplish what they want to accomplish?
Yeah, that's great. You know, these topics of managing the remote workforce. I'm so happy to hear that you were an early adopter of this, and you're a fully remote firm today. And there's so many great employees out there that are constrained either because of their physical ailments, or maybe they have children they need to care for, or elderly parents, things like this, that frankly they're just not involved in the workforce. And so it's companies like yours that are flexible and that understand the nature of humanity in this aspect to really allow these people to contribute and bring meaning to their lives and to the lives of others. So thank you so much, Gerri, for your service and in this initiative of remote work for many years now.
Hey, before we wrap up, I just want to make a comment and also just a follow-up. I just want to say, Gerri, yes, I totally agree. Your work is in high competition, I think, even more than ever. I would say, as we all are aware in the last, 5 years, decade, amazing how this industry has changed, particularly with AI, particularly with the competition out there. So many companies want something fast, cheap, get something out there. I need 3 articles a day. I need this and that, and not really taking the time to really appreciate the quality, and that the fact this is not just, whipped out as a product. So I just compliment you. And yes, it has to be a talent management strategy to have the right talent, agile talent, and help them adapt and have that competitive advantage, particularly in the marketing space and communication space. So thank you, Gerri, for your great representation, showing how you can lead a team remotely. And I think it's so needed. And I hope that this People Strategy Forum will share your message with other leaders, and you'll be a total inspiration. So just thank you very much for today. We appreciate it.
And thank you.
And so, Gerri, before we conclude today, I mean, I know that your organization does many things. You mentioned that in addition to marketing and doing the writing that you do for organizations all over, you also have a helping people enter into the United States that are those scholarly individuals, as you said. Could you tell us a little bit about your business there?
Sure. We're a marketing communications firm, and we provide 3 services. One is writing. We write all types of content, whether it's books, blogs, newsletters, byline articles, case studies, white papers, content for websites, email campaigns. The second service we provide is media outreach, where we help clients get published in the industry magazines read by their prospects and customers. We also arrange for clients to be on industry podcasts and webinars. But the third service that really distinguishes us from other creative services agencies is our marketing support. So we can work with entrepreneurial organizations, business enterprises that don't have a marketing plan and need one, or they have a marketing plan that's sitting on the shelf where it doesn't belong, or if their marketing team is on overload and they need some help implementing their plan so that projects don't fall through the cracks, we can help in that area too. So those are the 3 services we provide. As I mentioned, we have 2 distinct target markets. One is our corporate clients, and we're industry agnostic. The second is for individuals, and this is very specific to professionals who are interested in immigrating to the United States. They're applying for an EB-1A visa, and part of that process requires them to be published authors, and so we help them in that area.
That's great. Perfect. Well, I'm really pleased that we were able to have you as a guest on the forum today, and thank you so much for sharing all your expertise.
Well, thank you for having me, and I think your team is doing a great job.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today on the People Strategy Forum, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Bye.